Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. We had one team book their trip to the Western Conference Finals, and we had the defending champs stay alive last night, avoiding elimination. We'll get to both of those games here in this video. Before I get into it, make sure to leave a like if you enjoy this video, subscribe for more NBA postseason content, and also check the description down below so you can skip ahead to whichever game that you want to hear me talk about. Let's get into these two games. Two pretty decently blowout type of game fives that we had last night. Starting off with the Knicks-Celtics game five that the Celtics won by 25 points, 127 to 102, to once again avoid elimination against the New York Knicks. Now, heading into this game after losing game four and losing Jason Tatum to the horrible Achilles injury that'll most likely have him out for all of next season, I expected the Celtics to have this type of performance in this game. I just expected them to come out at home in front of that incredible Boston crowd without Tatum, come out with energy, and force on both ends of the floor to try to win this game and extend this series for Jason Tatum in a way and not get eliminated in 5 games on their home floor, and win it for Jason Tatum. And Celtics really put it on in the second half after an incredible first half where both teams were really throwing haymakers at each other. For New York, I mean, it was Jalen Brunson in the mid range as he always is doing, Mitchell Robinson on the boards, creating extra possessions for the Knicks, and Josh Hart knocking down a bunch of threes and finishes and getting hit in the face a bunch of times. That was keeping the Knicks in this game. It was tied up at 59 at the halftime break before the Boston Celtics went on an absolute rampage. After in the first half and in the first quarter, it was the Derek White show from 3-point range, as it has been throughout the last couple games of this series. Um, Derek White started to go crazy again in the third quarter. Yeah, Derek White, to start the game, had 14 points in the first quarter, hit 4 for 5 from three. But to start off the third quarter, it was Derek White once again that was knocking down threes and also getting to the free throw line. And that was really the big advantage that Boston had in that third quarter, was that they were getting to the free throw line a bunch. The Knicks were committing a bunch of fouls. Jalen Brunson ended up fouling out in this game. Karl Anthony Towns had 4 fouls. They both had 4 fouls at the same time in the third quarter. OG Anunoby really didn't have a good game. He was 1 for 12 from the field in this game. Mikal Bridges didn't have the impact that he has had, early on in the series when the Knicks won those first 2 games in Boston. And after a very close first half where it was the Derek White show. And then for the Knicks side of things, it was Hart and Brunson and Mitchell Robinson kind of keeping them in it. Boston just threw out that haymaker punch in the third and fourth quarters on both ends of the floor. They got a bunch of threes to go down in this game. They were 22 for 49 from three. That's their big MO, is knocking down the three ball. Um, and they were getting their threes from their defense after getting stops, making things very difficult for the Knicks to start the second half. The Celtics would get out in transition, move the basketball, and were able to get rhythm going from 3-point range as they had 6 different players knock down at least two threes or more. So that was huge. That was huge. Of course, when the Celtics hit a bunch of threes and at a good percentage, usually that bodes well for them because they're also playing well on the defensive end. And that's what they were doing. I mean, in a game where Josh Hart gave the Knicks 24.7 rebounds and again was just getting hit and bruised in this game. I mean, he got cut open in the first half. The pictures going around with Josh Hart just being completely bloodified by Luke Cornett in the first half. And then he got into the scuffle with Jalen Brown in the third quarter. Surprised that something like that hasn't happened earlier in the series where these two teams didn't get into it. But yeah, man, the Boston Celtics in the second half proved why they are still a super dangerous team, even if they don't have Jason Tatum. Jalen Brown played fantastic throughout the game, scoring for himself, making his teammates better. I mean, it was a pretty Jason Tatum-esque game from Jalen Brown. He finished with 26 points, 12 assists, and 8 rebounds, 9 for 17 from the field. Mentioned Derek White going crazy from three. Peyton Pritchard had a huge second half. And Luke Cornett, the X factor of it all in this game. Coming into this game with Kristaps Porzingis just not being himself, not being healthy, and just not playing well at all in this game. Luke Cornett was huge down the stretch for this game. Porzingis started this game, did not go well at all. Once again, has another horrible shift in the first half. I believe he doesn't even play in the second half. That's right. Yeah, Kristaps Porzingis only played 12 minutes, and those all came in the first half. Was benched in the second half because of how badly he played. Luke Cornett started the second half and was just absolutely terrific. 10 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 blocks. 7 blocks for Luke Cornett. He was absolutely fantastic, and it was in a variety of ways. Help defense, one-on-one defense, getting out to the perimeter to block shots. Luke Cornett was doing it all. And he, was the big defensive factor on the interior for the Celtics really blowing this game open. Of course, Drew Holiday and Derek White are doing their thing on the perimeter, but Luke Cornett being there to block a whole bunch of shots, was huge. Absolutely huge for this team. Sam Hauser was able to give the Celtics some minutes there, coming back from the ankle injury. He had missed the last 3 games of this series. He came in, knocked down a couple of threes. And yeah, man, the Boston Celtics able to extend this series to a game 6. Really not a whole lot of detail to talk about with this game, besides, of course, the Josh Hart getting hit in the face, Jalen Brunson fouling out at the beginning of the fourth quarter. But honestly, if I'm the New York Knicks, I thought that was honestly kind of better to have Jalen Brunson not really be able to go for the final few minutes of the fourth quarter with the foul trouble. Because, in this series, the New York Knicks have played, in the first 4 games, in the games that the Knicks have won, they have been hard fought, physical games that have come down to the wire. Where in the first, I guess, really in all 3 games, the Celtics were up double digits, up 14 to 20 points, and the Knicks had to claw their way back and really use a ton of energy to get back in those games. Had a feeling that a game like this would happen where the Knicks would kind of lose the energy and not be able to play the whole way for 48 minutes. I mean, it happened in game 3 when the Celtics were hitting a whole bunch of threes. But in that situation where you're getting blown out, I mean, they're down by 24, 25 points, really a few minutes into the fourth quarter. Look, as Tom Thibodeau, I feel like you gotta be like, look, just understand from your guys. All right, we don't have it today. We don't have it today. They made a punch in the third quarter. We've seen the Knicks obviously make those late comebacks in the fourth quarter, but this just never really felt like a day where they were going to come back with the way that OG and McHale just were not playing well. Towns getting in foul trouble, getting killed on the defensive end, like I think a lot of us thought would happen at the beginning of this series, and Brunson in foul trouble. Just just take off the last 5, 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. Get ready for game 6, because I'll talk about that a little bit later. Game 6 is the game now for the New York Knicks. But anyways, that's a whole long-winded way of getting back to the original point, that Jalen Brunson fouling out allowed him to be on the bench and not have to exert a bunch of extra unnecessary energy in a game where they were not going to win. And still, Thibodeau waits until like the 2:34 mark of the fourth quarter to empty his bench. I never understand that, especially in these types of situations. But yeah, the Boston Celtics and New York Knicks now head into a pivotal game 6 back in Madison Square Garden. And now the Knicks have put themselves in obviously great position because they have a home game at Madison Square Garden with a chance to close it out and advance to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. The thing is, though, now that Boston has gotten this rhythm, they got this energetic victory in game 5. Another game where their shots are falling. Derek White has another incredible game. Jalen Brown, as the number 1 guy, is obviously confident. He played a near perfect game in game 5, besides the free throw shooting, which was something to worry about a little bit there for the Celtics before they blew the game open. Um, the last thing that you want to do if you're the New York Knicks is lose game 6. Game 6 should be treated like the Knicks' game 7, because going on the road to Boston, and winning for a third time in the series, I think is a very difficult task, for this New York Knicks team, especially if you give the Celtics 2 straight victories where they're gonna be feeling confident at home. So I think that New York needs to end this in game 6 because I think they definitely could win in a game 7 in Boston, of course, with Tatum out, but, um I think that New York needs to treat game 6 like a game 7 and just try to get the job done, especially knowing that the Indiana Pacers, after wrapping up their series against Cleveland in 5 games, they're going to have a full week of rest before game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Knicks weren't able to get that done last night. Gotta try to get that advantage and defeat the Celtics in game 6 on Friday night. But either way, I cannot wait for that game because I know the Celtics are going to come with that fight. New York, that crowd is going to be absolutely incredible. Shout out to Boston for winning that game 5 for Jason Tatum. We'll see what happens in game 6 on Friday. Moving on to the Western Conference, we did have a team close out their series as the Minnesota Timberwolves knocked off the Golden State Warriors 121 to 110 in game 5 to advance to their second straight Western Conference final. This was a game that really was never in doubt, in my eyes. I mean, coming into this situation after Golden State had lost both of their home games without Steph Curry, and not going to get Steph Curry in this game. Was really difficult to see them winning this game. But got to give them credit. I mean, Minnesota played extremely well through the second and third quarters, to give themselves a big 23, 25 point cushion. But Golden State to start that fourth quarter kept on fighting. They were not going to go down without a fight. Moody was huge. He had 12 points. He didn't play until the fourth quarter, and he hit a bunch of threes. Brandon Pajemski and Jonathan Kaminga, going for 28 and 26 points respectively, was exactly the types of performances that you needed from your supporting players in a game like this. Pajemski was absolutely fantastic. He had the best game of his career in this game. Kaminga continues the fourth straight really good offensive performance from Jonathan Kaminga. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, both just not that great. Draymond Green was fine. Jimmy Butler had 17 points, 4 for 11 from the field, 9 for 11 from the free throw line. You know, Still don't think that he was as aggressive as he needed to be. And, I think I mentioned that point in a previous podcast video about how he played in Game 4, just looking passive, trying to get his other guys involved, which I obviously understand, and I understand that he's coming off of performances where he's playing 40+ minutes without Steph Curry, where he's having to endure a lot of physicality and contact on both ends of the floor. But I counter that with, regardless, Jimmy Butler is still having the ability to make plays, driving to the basket, collapsing the defense, and he's right at the basket for a floater or a pull up mid range shot. But instead, he's not even looking at the basket and he just throws it out to the corner where it's a worse possession. It's a worse possession. You're not gonna get a better look than a mid-range pull-up shot right in the middle, wide open. So to me, I'm disappointed with how Jimmy Butler played in this series with the stakes. Besides game 3, he was absolutely incredible. Besides, that performance, just wanted more from Jimmy Butler in this situation. Especially after the whole fiasco at the end of his tenure with Miami earlier this season. Wanted to see a little bit more in the playoffs. But got to give credit to the Warriors for fighting, not giving up. Again, Pajemski and Kaminga were huge. Moses Moody was good. But they lost to the better team. Of course, without Steph Curry, it was not going to be easy for them to pull it off. And Minnesota just got the job done. Once again, it's the same usual suspects. Julius Randle with 29 points, 8 boards, 5 assists. In this game, particularly, you could really see him smiling and enjoying himself throughout this game and playing with the joy that I don't think we've seen a lot throughout this season, throughout the last few years when he was a New York Knick with all the pressure. I think that he playing in this Timberwolves system, especially over these last few months after a very inconsistent regular season, him being able to play free on the offensive end, get his guys involved, and his role just to be basically support Anthony Edwards. If whatever Anthony Edwards isn't able to do, if he's getting double teamed and he needs you to make a play, go do it. If you need to make a play for your teammates, go do it. Um, and just be a positive physical presence on the defensive end, surrounded by all these other great defenders. And I think Julius Randle has done a great job of that. Anthony Edwards had 22 points, 12 assists, a playoff career high, 7 rebounds, 5 of 9 from three. He's continued to do an amazing job in these playoffs of making the right play, even if he's not the one taking the shot, getting off the ball when he has to, shooting an open shot when necessary, making a play for himself when, the offense is dried out a little bit and he has to make a play. They were fantastic. Rudy Gobert's second straight series that he has an incredible impact in the clinching game 5. He had 17 points and 8 rebounds in this one. 8 for 9 from the floor was a plus 21, a game high. Mike Conley had his best game of the playoffs. 16.6 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 of 7 from the field, 4 for 6 from three. And their bench came in and played well too. DiVincenzo, another good game. He's really struggled from three throughout this postseason, but throughout these last few games, he's been able to see his shot fall through, which is going to be important heading into their next series, regardless of who they play. And the Minnesota Timberwolves making their second straight Western Conference final is just extremely impressive. Extremely impressive. Very commendable for a franchise that was on a 20-year drought of making the conference finals before last year, and they've made it 2 years in a row. And this season, I had a ton of doubts. I had a ton of doubts that they would be able to do it when trading Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle. I did not think that made them a better team. Of course, Randle has, as I just talked about, has fit himself into this Wolf system nearly flawlessly, and allowed this team to just play freely and off their stars. And now they have put themselves in the position to be one of the two final teams standing in the Western Conference and get part of the Final Four for the second straight year. Um, Again, in a year where there was a ton of adversity, inconsistencies, their offense and defense, while the stats looked good by the end of the season, it was really up and down the whole way through. And heading into the final day of the regular season, this team was could have very well have, fallen into a play-in spot. After losing that whatever the 24-point fourth quarter lead to the Milwaukee Bucks in one of the final games of the season, they could have put themselves in a very bad position. But they have just come through in these playoffs. Um, 2 5-game wins against the Lakers in the first round, Golden State in the second round. Of course, a lot of people are going to say, Steph Curry was injured. You're supposed to do this. You can only play who's in front of you. It's the same case with the Timberwolves as it is for the Indiana Pacers. Yes, did the Pacers play some injured teams the last couple of years? Yes, but you can only play who's in front of you, and these two teams have just gotten the job done. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they perform in the conference finals. I'm just shocked that the Timberwolves and the Pacers are both back in the conference final. If we went into the beginning of this season and you gave me the final four teams from last year, Minnesota, Dallas, Boston, and Indiana, and you asked me, all right, if only two of these teams could make it back to the conference finals, who's it going to be? And obviously you'd say Boston and Dallas. Obviously, a lot of things happen with the Dallas Mavericks during this season. And the Boston Celtics, of course, there is still a chance that they could win these next two games after winning last night. But the Pacers and the Timberwolves being back is incredible, and Minnesota deserves a lot of credit for proving a lot of people wrong this year. There were a lot of doubters this year, myself included, and they have been very impressive. Of course, whoever comes out of this Oklahoma City Denver series is going to be a whole different beast than either the Lakers or the Warriors. So they're going to need to get themselves prepared for that. Something that I would be a little bit worried about is how careless the Timberwolves were with the basketball in this series. Um, Once again in this game, they have 20 turnovers. I'm pretty sure that throughout the series, they had 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 turnovers, like all in a row. And that's not good. That's not good, especially if particularly OKC comes out of the West. They're the best defense in the NBA. They're one of the best defensive teams we have ever seen. And turning the basketball over against that team is not gonna would not be a good idea. So that's gonna be something to watch for. But we'll do a full, series preview. When once we figure out who comes out of that series. As far as Golden State goes, quick look into their offseason a little bit now that they're out in the second round. Interesting to see where they will go from here. Of course, you're without Steph Curry in this, second round series after, the first quarter plus of game 1. They upset the number 2 seeded Houston Rockets in round 1, winning in 7 games. Although I think that was just an upset for seeding. Not many people picked Houston to win that series. And I think the Rockets really tired out the Warriors, and big reason why Steph Curry was, banged up, um, in game 1 of this second round series. But as far as the offseason goes, Golden State finishing 7th in the Western Conference, winning the play-in, beating Houston in round 1, losing to Minnesota 5 games in round 2. Where do they go from here? Because in both rounds, we could see, of course, the flaws of this team, and this is a very old team at their core. Of course, another year older with Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond Green. Steph Curry, at this time next year, Curry's going to be 38. Butler and Green will both be 36. And your role players very inconsistent and very suspect. Of course, the number one question about this roster is going to be, what do they do with Jonathan Kaminga? Because while he was good at times in the playoffs, he was really only to perform well when it was only one of Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler. When both of them were available, Kaminga could not play. He just couldn't play. So him being up for a contract in this summer as a restricted free agent, I believe, is, going to be something to watch for. We'll see if any teams are interested in throwing him out another offer that could give him maybe a more consistent role. Because Kaminga has played well enough in these last 4 games to prove that he deserves, that type of money, whether it's from Golden State or somewhere else. We will see. Maybe it's a sign-in trade and potentially get another piece there to Golden State. You have your upcoming free agents along with Kaminga are Gary Payton II, Kevon Looney. 2 veterans. Kevon Looney, of course, he's been there his entire career. I'm sure he'll probably re-up with the Warriors unless a team. I mean, there are a lot of teams that are going to be in the market for a backup center that can rebound and play physical defense. So who knows? He could be back with the Warriors, for a hometown discount maybe, but he's also played well enough to where he should get a payday. I mean, he wasn't in the rotation at times for the Warriors, but I think that's just because Steve Kerr had to just try so many different things. And I think that speaks to this Warriors team that there isn't an identity to this Warriors team besides Steph Curry. And when Steph Curry isn't in the game, when he's not available, what are you going to get from these other guys? I mean, Pajemski was so hit or miss in this series. Same thing with Moses Moody. He had a pretty good first round against Houston. Couldn't really play in this second round series. They went back and forth between like 3 or 4 different starting lineups in this series between Quentin Post, who was a great find for them in the second round last year as a rookie. He'll come back next year. Trace Jackson Davis had a very good rookie year last year, was hit or miss this year. Didn't really hear a whole lot from him until this second round where he had a good game 2 and got into the starting lineup for the last few games of this series. Of course, Buddy Hield will be under contract for next year, but he's going to be 33 next year. Um, there's just not, I don't know if there's a whole lot of avenues for this Golden State team to get a whole lot better in a Western Conference that is only going to get crazier next season. Just looking at it, of course, you've got the 3 teams that are still going on here in the Western Conference with Minnesota, Denver, and OKC, who are all going to be back next season. There's no signs of any 3 of those teams slowing down. Houston's going to get better. They could potentially get a superstar player in a trade. They are going to be way better. The Lakers are going to get a center. Second year of Doncic and James should make them better. The Clippers should be good in the regular season. They have a good regular season roster. Memphis could be better. I mean, they were a top, 4 team in the West all season long. You have Dallas, who should be way better with Cooper Flag getting drafted and just a healthy year of that core. Obviously, San Antonio should be ridiculous with the potential moves that they could make this summer. Um, and in the middle of that, you have these teams like Golden State, Sacramento, Phoenix, New Orleans should be way better next season, because with them hopefully getting healthier. You even have a team like the Portland Trailblazers, who I think could make a Houston Rockets type of jump next season. So where does that leave this Golden State team in the whole grand scheme of things when your star guys are only getting older and your young guys are really suspect. They've done a really poor job of drafting. They've drafted okay role players, but nothing special to where I really feel comfortable about this team going forward. Of course, they played great in the second half of the year once Jimmy Butler got there in the honeymoon phase. We'll have to see how they can play, in a full season there with guys that are again getting older, higher chance of injury, and again a Western Conference that is only going to get better, and Golden State could very well be dropping going forward. But yeah, man, let me know what you guys think about the Warriors offseason going forward. But of course, there's going to be so much time to speculate about what they can do in the summer. But that's going to be it for me here. Minnesota back in the Western Conference Finals. Boston stays alive against the New York Knicks. Very fun night in the playoffs, even though we didn't really get a close competitive game, like we have really had the whole second round. I mean, we've really gotten lucky with all these results that we've had in the second round. But it's a bit slower night, but still a ton of fun. If you did enjoy this video, again, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA postseason content. Actually, before I get out of here, I'll preview the game here tonight, as I always do. Almost forgot to do that. Only one game tonight. We have gotten to the point now where we are going to only have one game a night now here in the playoffs, and it is game 6 of the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Denver Nuggets at 8:30 p.m. on ESPN from Denver, looking to keep their season alive and force a game 7, while Oklahoma City will look to get their way to their first Western Conference final since 2016, where they would face off against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Cannot wait for that game 6 in Denver. Let me know what you guys will think will happen in this one. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.